Hi everybody, it's me, and I'm back for another episode in the summer series, and today we are going to Spain. We have finally arrived in the beautiful country of Spain, one of my bucket list items for sure, and today we're going to be talking about our day in Barcelona. The first thing I could say about Spain right off the bat is that I definitely intend to go back. I have to see a lot more and spend some more time there because I really enjoyed the vibe. I loved the people, the hustle and bustle, the food. So let me just tell you all about it. We had our first of 3 excursions planned for this day. And so we got up early and we went to where we are dispatched, if you will, and then walked over to the gangway and exited the ship and headed over to nice air-conditioned buses. Thank goodness, because it's hot. It was hot all over Europe, but it was a really hot day in Barcelona. It was expected to be 90 degrees, and I'm sure it was every bit of that, and add humidity to the mix. So it was quite a day with regards to weather. Definitely drank a lot of water that day. I remember that. But we ended up in this bus, lovely tour, great tour guide. I really thought that this lady, her name was Maria, was super knowledgeable. And even though she had an accent, it was a lovely accent in that it kind of reminded you the entire time that you were in Spain. And this lady just really spent the entire time talking to us, asking questions, and really added so much more to our experience in Barcelona. And that's one thing I gotta say. Sometimes these excursions, you think, oh yeah, we're just not gonna do that. It's just a money grab. But sometimes it's worth every single penny. And in this case, it was definitely worth every single penny, especially because we used our shipboard credits for excursions. So it didn't cost us any more than we had already paid. But I'm just being silly. I would have paid for this one because it really did change the day given all of the information that we got. So Maria gets us started on the drive into town to head to the Sagrada Familia. What is the Sagrada Familia? Well, all I kept hearing about before we went was Sagrada Familia. You've got to go there. And I did not have any time to do any research, and that was a good thing because Maria told me basically everything I needed to know, but I'll share just a little synopsis with you. It's essentially a large, unfinished Roman Catholic basilica, obviously in Barcelona, and it was designed by the late, great Antoni Gaudí. The construction began years and years and years ago in 1882, and they're hoping that it'll be completed in 2026. So the story goes that Antoni Gaudí was a very eccentric man and did not really communicate with people. He was kind of a loner. And so sometime in 1926, he got hit by a train and he was left for dead. He appeared homeless, so nobody helped him. And then finally somebody got up and helped him, but they took him to like their equivalent of like the county hospital for people who are indigent. And it took almost an entire day for them to discover who it was. And by then he had apparently slipped into a coma and passed away. And so he never recovered, and that is how he died. This is why there has been such a big push to get the entire basilica completed by 2026 so that they could have a centenary celebration of Gaudí's death. And it is indeed a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And obviously, if you think Barcelona, then you think Sagrada Familia Basilica, because they are definitely, or it is definitely one of the most iconic landmarks in all of Barcelona. So let's talk a little bit more about the ride to La Sagrada Familia, because it was, like I said, about a 30-minute ride. And we saw so much in the streets of Barcelona, such a bustling town. One of the things Maria told us is that in Barcelona, graffiti is considered art. And so there are many art students that go to college, and as such, they will be seen from time to time graffitiing on the walls. But the works of art that these kids paint are just beautiful. And so Maria tells us that the city has embraced the art and therefore does not view it as graffiti. And it's just gorgeous. I'll post some pictures. So that was interesting. And it was very different than the actual graffiti that we did see a little bit later when we went to the other side of town. So there's definitely a difference between their artistic graffiti and then their equivalent of just tagging on the walls, I guess. We also saw the university, and we passed by a couple of schools. And one of the things that I found interesting is that students in Barcelona go to school from like 7 or 8 in the morning till 5 p.m., just like having a job. And then once they get into high school, I think they get off at 3 o'clock. But they automatically are expected to know Spanish, and then they learn Catalan, which is Castilian, and the local dialect of Catalunya, which is the area in which Barcelona has the Sagrada Familia statue and kind of the neighborhood there. And one of the other things that is also very famous that is located in this area is the Museo Picasso. Have we ever heard of Picasso? Well, his museum is in Barcelona, Spain. We did not get a chance to see it, but it's definitely on my list when we go back. And so we're driving through and we see the university, and then we start to notice just the different types of architecture. And it wasn't lost on me that there is just so much love put into what they build, what they make. It's just something really special to see, all the way down to Maria pointing out the beauty of one of the street signs and one of the light posts. So all the way down to the details of street signs, they take great pride in that, and it shows. And Antoni Gaudí gets the majority of the accolades for having been, such a fabulous and famous designer. But truth be told, there were a lot of lovely and intelligent and talented artistic architects and designers that built the city of Barcelona, because you can see the different styles, and it's just something breathtaking to see. So we get to kind of a landing station, I guess, because it is no longer allowed for buses to park near the actual basilica. So it's about a 15-minute walk, and you kind of walk through the town and head up. Well, we all get off, and the first thing that I see as I am crossing the street to head toward the Sagrada Familia is a young lady painting on the wall and another girl taking photos of her. So as soon as she saw our group coming, she switched her attention and started taking photos of us. And so I returned the favor and took photos of her and her partner that was painting. So I'll post that one on Instagram as well. I just thought it was really cool that I kind of got to see something that I just learned in actual real time. And then we walked through the city. It was hot. It was sticky, but it was fine. It was crowded. And we were warned about pickpockets. We were told that, especially around the Basilica, which is kind of sad, they're targeted because they know that it's mostly, if not all, tourists. And so they do have a tendency to kind of inundate that area. But and it's really easy to see how that's possible once you start to get close, because it is just slammed with people. I'm talking in some places and at some points in the tour, shoulder to shoulder. So if you're not into crowds, this is probably not the excursion for you. You could probably, save yourself the stress or the anxiety. But for me, it was worth every second, because the awe of looking at the immensity of this beautiful Gothic, Spanish, modern, just all these different styles of this building. And you could almost see Gaudi's moods by how certain steeples and certain areas were built versus others. And of course, there's a lot of Catalan nationalism, artistic styling there as well. And one of the things that she told us is after his death, it was there was this rush to try to get it finished, and there was no funds for it, and so they started kind of commissioning other people in different places. And one of the things that was really kind of funny is that they commissioned some of the statues that are surrounding the outside exterior of the building to Japan. And the funniest part was that they all came back with Japanese faces. And so if you look, you'll definitely see that that is in fact the case. And then one of the other interesting facts, I guess, is that it is the only place that you will see a crucifix of Jesus with no loincloth. And I guess at first the Catholic Church kind of frowned upon it and did not want to canonize the Basilica and allow it to be, in fact, a Roman Catholic church. But eventually they acquiesced and they went ahead and gave it the blessing. And so when you look at that statue on the backside of the Basilica and you just see the intricacies of, the depictions of heaven and hell and of the stations of the cross, there's just so much to see that it's definitely something you could spend hours picking apart and, examining and researching. Obviously, we didn't have that kind of time. And there was one lady who just could not get over the fact that this excursion in particular did not include entry to the Basilica, so we would only be seeing the exterior. And my comment was, you should have read the description. It was pretty clear that there were no tickets for entry included. And so our friends went on a separate tour that was not through the cruise line, and they actually got tickets. But Maria kind of fibbed to us, because when the lady was complaining about the fact that we weren't going to be able to go in, and I mean, she was pissed. She was pouting. She was, holding the group back, walking really slow. And finally, Maria turned to her and said, it takes about a year to get tickets. That was a big lie. Our friends got tickets pretty much right before we left on vacation. So I don't think that having to secure tickets a year in advance is necessary. And when I got back, I looked on one of those excursion booking sites, and I was able to secure tickets for the next day had we still been there. So little white lie, maybe just to talk this angry woman down, I don't know. But we moved on with the tour. We spent a good maybe hour walking around, and then we got about 30 minutes to shop in the little town there. And the first thing I came upon was a Llardro store, and I've always wanted to own a Llardro. In case you don't know what a Llardro is, it is a porcelain figurine. They're originally from Spain. I believe it was Valencia. And the company was started by three brothers back in 1953. And they used to focus on like vases and pots. And then eventually they moved over to these figurines. And their main characteristics are the type of porcelain they use. And then, of course, they're also known for their like pastel palette. And I've always wanted one. They can be very, very pricey. And it was an honor to be able to buy one in Spain. So I bought a Blessed Family Llardro, and it is just my little pride and joy. Now, when I say they can get really expensive, the most expensive Llardro ever purchased at auction was sold for $130,000. Unbelievable. And then some of the more unique and distinct statues sell for anywhere from $30,000 to $65,000. So they could get pretty pricey. Obviously, I didn't spend that kind of money on mine, but I entered the family of the Llardros. So I'm very, very excited to be able to say that I have one that I purchased in Spain. And so once we got done shopping, I bought that and a couple of other things. Everybody was searching high and low for cold water, and there were lines everywhere for the restroom. And once all of that happened, the 30 minutes went in a flash. We didn't even get to walk around very much at all. It was our intention to try to find little tapas, and we didn't get time to do any of that. So we walked back to the bus, and off we were back to essentially the port. But first we stopped by Barcelona, which is Little Barcelona. You guys, we passed by the street that had all of the designer shops, and it's really weird because you have clear gentrification going on there. On the top, you have the architecture with all the old, Nouveau or Spanish style, or even some modern buildings, but old and unique. And then down below, there'll be a Starbucks or a Cartier or a Louis Vuitton. It's just odd. But Maria tells us that this is a ridiculously expensive place to live, that most people cannot afford to live in Barcelona because it is so pricey, and also people just don't move. So between that and the fact that there is a parking issue, and apparently they made all of these regulations some years ago to try to improve smog, and I asked if it was working, and she said no, it's not working. She thinks that it's worse than ever now. And then we talked a little bit about languages, like what languages do these kids learn in school? And so she said basically that they're expected to know Spanish, and they learn Catalan, which is their local dialect, and they obviously spend a good amount of time learning English, 4 to 5 hours, I believe she said. Maybe it was 3 to 4 hours. Maybe I'm exaggerating. And then she said by the time they get into like grade school, like middle school or early high school, they are expected to pick up another language, such as French, Japanese, and so Italian. And so these kids get out of school knowing 4 languages, and that's pretty impressive. Says a little bit of something about us. So anyway, one of the things that I forgot to mention about the Sagrada Familia Basilica is that it's been, so obviously from the time frame, it's been over 140 years that they've been trying to finish this thing. And the reason is because it's funded primarily by the donations and the ticket sales for the actual tours. So every now and then they'll get a really large donation and there'll be some real work done. And I guess that is what happened last year. And this is why there's hope to finish it by the century mark of Gaudi's death. And so anyway, I digress. Let's go back because we're done with La Sagrada Familia. Now we're entering the area of La Ribera, which is kind of the area that is known for the Basilica Santa Maria del Mar. And it is beautiful, very Gothic looking in my opinion. I think if I was a child, I would have been intimidated to go to church there. It was a little scary, huge black door in the front. It was closed when we passed by, but we were given about an hour to spend time in that little area, and it was a really cute area. So my husband and I decided that we were going to try to find somewhere to have a sangria, damn it, because we were in Spain and we wanted sangria. So we did. We came upon this cool little place that we were looking for anything indoors. And so they had indoor seating, and it looked like they had tapas. And we were really excited about doing tapas and sangria in Spain. We didn't have a lot of time, so we couldn't fiddle-faddle around. We had to just sit down and make a decision. So we ordered batatas bravas. We ordered shrimp, basically scampi style. And we got some beautiful olives. And a couple of liters of, not a couple of liters, 1 liter of sangria. This sangria was delicious. I wish we'd ordered 2 liters, but we wouldn't have had time. So we drank that. We ate as much as we could of all of the food. It was tapas to share. So the portions were a little bit larger than I guess your normal tapas would be, but it was priced very nicely. The people were super efficient, really kind. It had an open kitchen. So every now and then the guy would look out and like give us the thumbs up question mark look. And, you know, of course I would speak to him in Spanish and tell him that I really enjoyed it. And when we left, we almost, you know, we booked it quite quickly back to the bus because we used every bit of the time we were allowed. And then we were on our way back. And right before we headed back, we did get to pass by the infamous Las Ramblas, which is like a walking street. It's my understanding it's less than a mile long, but it's kind of the shopping place to go. And honestly, Maria said, don't go if you don't really need to. It is, in fact, the highest incident of pickpocketing in the city of Barcelona because it is such a tourist trap. So even though it was pretty close to the port and we were there, this was one of our longer days at port, I didn't feel compelled to go back. I saw it as we were passing by, and we got to see the infamous Christopher Columbus statue and several other, you know, monuments that were pretty impressive and pretty beautiful. I'll post pictures. We got back in the afternoon and went straight to our stateroom, threw on our swimsuits, and went out to the pool. Piña coladas were flowing heavily that day, and we were out at the pool and had met up with our friends who had done other things. We had the 4 friends that went to the inside of the Sagrada Familia, but then just came right on back. I had another friend that went to do cava and chocolates and was sweet enough to bring us some chocolate. She said it was the best chocolate she had ever had in her whole life. That's a huge statement, and she meant it. She said she wasn't kidding. And then we had another group of friends that spent the day at the beach, and they looked like they had had a great time. So we got back, we hung out at the pool, we drank piña coladas, and then guess what? We found out that Patricia had made another, I don't know, appearance, for lack of a better word. So apparently, before we arrived to the pool, one of our friends, okay, I'm going to say it, Greg, was laying out by the pool, and his wife, Nancy, was not too far away. And up comes Patricia in her swimsuit, parks herself next to our friend, and says something to the effect of, "Is it okay if I take off my bathing suit top because I don't like tan lines?" Can you believe it? This woman had to be in her late 60s, maybe. I mean, talk about thirsty. That was nasty. She absolutely knew that man was married because she had just met him when she was running around asking for everybody's signatures and sticking her nose in everybody's business at the welcome dinner. So now I'm trying to figure out, like, where did this lady come from and why is she even here? She was part of our group, but apparently she lived in Maryland. So I'm trying to figure out what the connection is. Well, I guess she had traveled before with Pear in the group, and so she somehow found out about this trip, and I'm told by others in her circle, basically invited herself. So I was like, what? Now, if that had been my husband, that would not have gone over very well. I don't care. Like, that's just tacky and nasty, and I couldn't. So this is our second, encounter with Patricia, and I just thought it was terrible. But we enjoyed the rest of the afternoon. We hung out, we relaxed, and then we all went in and got ready for dinner. And I believe that this was the night that we went back to the grand dining room and we had quite a large group. I could be conflating the evenings, but some nights it was just 4 of us. Most nights it was 7 of us. And some nights it was up to 10 of us. And I'll tell you about that one night that there were 10 of us. That'll be in the next episode. But for now, let me just tell you, the food this night was delicious. We had, I think this was the night that we went to the, it was the grand dining room. I'm babbling. Anyway, this food was delicious. Ben had a steak with like a polenta. I had a beautiful sea bass. All of the food was really good. And then Ben he was like apple obsessed. Every night he would have whatever their version of apple dessert. And on this particular evening, he had a really beautiful apple tart for dessert. And so, of course, we headed over to Martini's after and listened to the piano player, ordered a couple of cocktails. And in this night in particular, Ben and Greg went off to the casino, which was right by Martini's. So they went off to the casino. I hung back. We were talking, laughing, just recapping our days, exchanging stories. People would pass by and come and go and talk about their days. And at this point, you're starting to kind of make friends and recognize people and follow up with, oh, you were going to go here today. How did it go? And so it gets to be very much a camaraderie, and we're 4 days in. So I really felt that Barcelona had so much to offer. I thought it was beautiful. I really want to go back and spend more time there, not in a cruise capacity, but go to Spain. I want to go see Madrid. I want to go back and spend more time in Barcelona. I want to do the whole 9 yards. And I think I even have a travel partner in mind who has semi-committed to go on this trip with me. So let's hope that we can make that happen sometime in the near future. And honestly, that was one of my favorite days. We saw a lot, we did a lot, and I was so thrilled with my Llardro purchase. So all in all, a good day on the seas in the Mediterranean, and let's just move right on along. Why not end on a high note? Now let's talk Hunt for Love. The 90-Day Fiancé franchise is just killing it with this show, in my opinion. Hunt for Love is on episode 10 is on tonight. I'm taping this on Monday, so if you're listening on Tuesday, then it was on last night. But anyhow, episode 10 is where we're at, and the last one I covered before we left was episode 3. So I'm going to do a, catch up of sorts so that next week we can be right back on track with Hunt for Love, because they had the supersized end of the season preview at the end of episode 9. And you guys, it looks good. There's still a lot that's going to happen. And I'm really excited to be watching this show. I like it because it brings kind of the best of the both worlds. We have all of the old people that we already kind of know their backstory on, but everybody is single. So everybody is still trying to find love. And then we have the not 90-day people who have no idea what the hell is going on and are just there for what they thought was going to be a connection. It's just kind of, I like the formula. What more can I say? So let's jump right on in because Cole's an idiot. I mean, geez Louise. And Tim is messing with him and he's giving Tim space in his head. Just like Jeniffer. I mean, this argument that's going on between the two of them. And did you see Jennifer's eyes? I mean, she was on the verge of slurring, but she was for sure inebriated. And this girl gets super feisty when she gets drunk. But then there's my girl Tiff, who, in my opinion, is the most logical person on this show. And her little googly eyes with her crush Rocky / porn stash. I really like this storyline, and I hope Tiffany finds her way. Then we have Courtney, who, God bless her, she's falling for all of Usman's nonsense, while Colt is really truly smitten, in my opinion. And then, ew, at the end of the night, Usman walks Courtney back, and then he's automatically like trying to spend the night. Like, his game is lame, dude. You don't have it together, sir. And so he ends up not spending the night because it got really awkward, and he took his shoes off, and then he walked away with his shoes in his hands. I mean, it was just a weird scene, in my opinion. But the next day, instead of just like approaching Colt like a man and saying like, I'm threatened by this, what the hell's going on, let's talk it out, he plays games. He plays 20 questions to try to find out if Colt likes Courtney. Well, duh. So it doesn't really go very well. Colt is not happy by the confrontation, and we get to see a different side of Colt. But first, it seems to me like Rob has lost what's left of his mind. Why is he messing with Jen? Ay, muchacho. Well, apparently he and Jen Mario Karted until 3 a.m. Jen was smart. She was smart not to tell Courtney about her night with Rob, even though Courtney knows. And then Jeniffer calls her reaction hurt. I don't think that woman understands what hurt is. That wasn't hurt. That was psychosis. Okay, tell me what Mario Kart is code for. You know what it's code for. And don't get me started on the conversation about it tastes like truffles. If you know, you know. I have a certain degree of dignity, and I am a grandma, so I'm not going to go into detail about what led to that conversation, but it was pretty damn funny. And then Elise is pissed. You could see she's starting to get really annoyed with the storyline that people are trying to push upon her, and she's not having it. And then to end that episode, Colt and Usman are still going back and forth, and then Colt just basically reads Usman a new one, and that's how that one ends. So when we pick up on episode 5, Jeniffer and Courtney are at the pool, and Cole shows up to kiss her ass, I'm sure. So Courtney leaves because it's awkward, and then just as I expected, Jeniffer reels him back in and manipulates him and double speaks, and next thing you know, they're back on good terms. Can you tell I don't like this girl? I've just met a lot of women that are this girl, and I just don't fuck with it. So let's just move on. The group plays a game, and we're privy to who has common interests. For example, do you want children? And then the guys would answer and the girls would answer, and they'd flip their card. So you'd kind of know who you have stuff in common with. And Usman was just tickled over the fact that he and Courtney kept having the same answers. Meanwhile, Colty and Courtney are not having the same answers. In fact, Courtney's a little repulsed by some of Colty's answers, and it has her start to lean Usman's way. So I don't know, but for me, I don't think she's making the right choice. It's early yet. We still have a lot more episodes, so who knows? But is it me, or is Usman's language barrier or his deficiency in the English language, is that what makes him come across as mean? Because he comes across like, I don't know, just cold and very matter of fact, and also very self-involved. So I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just that he doesn't choose the right words. Then Tiffany and Carlo, they go out on a second date, and I'm just not seeing it. Well, it turns out neither are they. At least for now, right? Because he's really, really put off by the fact that she has 2 children. And he's honest with her about it, but then he tells her, like, I like you, so let's kind of see where this goes. And then he tells us that he's considering making an exception to this rule because he does really like her. But she gets a bad taste in her mouth as soon as she sees his reaction. And in her opinion, she doesn't want to waste any time with anybody who doesn't want to be with someone who has children, because she is, in fact, a single mother of 2 children. It makes perfect sense, Tiff. Then Tim and Elise start to vibe, at least from Tim's perspective. Now, Elise is, in my opinion, just one of those flirty people, and I don't even think she realizes when she's giving off those vibes, because she's flirting with Tim, and he's taking it as flirtation, and I feel like she's kind of friend-zoned him. I hope I'm wrong about that, and I hope Tim finds someone, because I'm really tired of everybody labeling him as gay. The other day I was at my hair appointment, and my hairdresser asked what I was watching on TV, and when I told her about this new show, she used to watch TLC in the 90 days and all of that, and then she just got burned out, so she stopped watching. But when I told her about this, she said, this is one I might actually watch. And then I told her who was on it, and when I got to Tim, she said, oh, he's gay. Well, she and everybody else in the world believes this, and so if he is, he is, but gosh, he's sure searching hard for the love of his life in a woman. And he's in his 40s. Guys, I don't know. I don't think he's gay. Then they have a kiss-off, and I found it boring. I found it performative. I didn't like it. It felt really scripted. And I, in particular, thought that the kiss between Chantel and Jeniffer was TLC, reaching for a viral moment. It was kind of a lot. And I'm not being a fuddy-duddy about it. They're there to find love. And so if in fact they truly are looking for love, this is just a waste of time. And it's performative. But the guys liked watching. Well, at least some of them. Cole didn't very much like Jeniffer being kissed. Whatever. Then they all go on champagne dates. So the girls are each given a bottle of champagne, and they're told that they need to pick someone to go on a date with. So, of course, Jeniffer is a game player, and she picks Colt, even though she literally walked around with Rob all day, and she's standing next to Rob when it's time to pick your partner. And then for some reason, Chantel picked Rob. Was she shooting her shot? I'm confused. She did say he was the best looking guy there in her opinion, so maybe she was. I don't know. Well, it ends right as they're choosing their people for the dates. So, of course, episode 6 is picking up right when they're going to start their dates. And honestly, I start this episode off being furious because Jen is just so conniving. Like, she's flat out lying to Cole about not having kissed anybody besides Chantel. She's just nasty. I mean, when this guy watches back, he's going to be heartbroken if he really truly did have feelings for her. And, that makes me start to wonder, what man falls this hard this quickly? I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with Cole and he kind of deserves it. The thing that bothers me the most about this is that there was really no reason to say anything. It wasn't even being asked at that point, and she was just lying for the sake of lying. And you could see by the look in her eyes that she's enjoying the hell out of this lie. So I have no respect for anybody that plays people that way. And I'm telling you, with every episode, I am just disliking this one more and more. I never did like her, but geez, this is really taking it to new levels for me. And I don't know, how do you feel? Do you guys feel the same way about her, or am I just barking up the wrong tree here? You guys, Colty finally made his move on Courtney. It was so cute. He finally is going to try to approach her. And then, okay, so they show Cole and Jeniffer in the dark, night vision, And I couldn't. I was distracted by the raccoon at the feet of the bed. Did you guys catch that? There was a raccoon in there with them, and they're doing, going soft porn, I guess trying to have a breakout moment. Meanwhile, Rob knows what's going on. I mean, this girl, she just reads nasty. And I was just dying when they were, the scene with the workout and the Fred Flintstone looking like gym equipment. It was just too much for me. And then, you have poor Nikki, who is just caught in the crossfire. She is one of the non-90-day people, and she is just, unfortunately, a victim in this nonsense that these two are playing back and forth, because Usman just wants to use this girl to get to Courtney, and it's not going to go well. Then Tiffany uncovers the fact that it's Jen that is her neighbor. And Elise and Tiffany decide to tell Cole what's going on. So, allegedly, Tiffany had been hearing noises that sounded sexual in nature coming from that villa. And all along, she thought that that was Rob's villa. So she, along with someone else, I'm not blaming you, Tiffany, but somewhere, somehow, you're involved in this too. Some way, somehow, the rumor got out that that was Elise that had been spending the nights at Rob's. But then Cole was coming to Tiffany's door at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning crying because Jeniffer was not there and nobody knew where she was. Well, then Tiffany discovered that that was Jennifer's villa, and so the noises weren't Rob, or maybe they were, but for sure they weren't Elise. They were Jeniffer. So we all know this as viewers, but nobody else kind of knows what's going on, and they decide that it's time to tell Cole what's going on. But then it ends up being Carlo shows up, and then Elise ends up telling them. So, I don't know. He confronts Rob. He goes over, and then Rob just lies. Flat out, blatantly lies. So, do you think Rob is wrong to have lied? I don't think that he's wrong to have lied. I don't think that he owes Colt anything as far as an obligation, and I sure don't think that he should be kissing and telling. And that's hard for me to say, given how I feel about Jeniffer. But even though I was pissed off in the moment, after thinking about it, it's Rob's business what he chooses to do. And if he chose to lie to Cole, that's on him. And then during the social media review, they have this area where they're going to review, where they're going to review everybody's social media and see how they come across to people. And so Elise finally finds an inn, and she's going to confront Jeniffer about sleeping with Rob. She is pissed. She says, everybody's saying it's me, but I think it's you. And then Cole with an E finally gets to the end of his rope. He blows a fuse, and he goes to confront both Rob and Jeniffer about the games they're playing. And Jeniffer tries to gaslight him and literally turned everything against him. This girl's good, man. You got to give it to her. By the end of the episode, she had Colt wondering what the hell he had done wrong. But episode 7 continues with the confrontation, and he tells Jen all he wants is honesty. She deflects yet again, and she gets away with it yet again. We finally get to meet one of the non-90-day people that are on the show in Joe. Joe invites Chantel out on a date. And then they decide to go on a double date with Usman, who had invited Nikki out. Basically just to make Courtney jealous, remember? Soulja Boy, you be weird, dude. He and Nikki have some chanting ritual that they went to, and then the conch shell music, and then they have an energy cleanse, and Nikki goes into the water fully dressed, which was a little weird. And then Nikki starts talking about sexuality and tells Usman that she's bisexual and asks him how he feels about it. He goes into an immediate panic, and at least he's honest with her, and he tells her that he doesn't think he could have a relationship with anybody like that. But he doesn't really know what it means. And he asks her, what kind of sex would you expect me to have with you? Hi, Usman. Nikki replies, regular sex, and basically chalks the date up to history, and they both decide it's not going to work. Meanwhile, Chantal and Joe are having a beer bath, meaning they really are sitting in beer. And I was surprised. They had a nice connection, and they had a good conversation, and they had a sweet little kiss too. Jeniffer takes the night off because she feels attacked. Good riddance. Take the night off. Give us the rest, please. She rejects Colt's proposition to have a quick chat and says she just needs some space, and off she goes. They have a tiki party, and that's what she's not attending that night because she needs space. The tiki party is on the beach, and Elise brings Courtney up to speed about what happened with Jeniffer. And oh, by the way, that Usman is on a date with some girl named Nikki. And Courtney is a little taken aback by the news. I think that the ploy to make her jealous may indeed be working. Then Chantal makes this big happy entrance, and Joe is quick to call her baby and take her off to get a drink. So things are going okay here. Meanwhile, Colt really thinks he and Courtney would do well together, and he tells us that. Enter Usman, who is thrilled that his plot to make Courtney jealous worked. So he beats Colty to the punch and asks Courtney out on a date. Damn it. I was so mad at this. I wanted Colty to get that date so badly, and he still, in 44 years of life, has not asked anyone out on a date to this point. Courtney accepts Usman's invitation and decides that she's going to go out on a date with him the next day. And then Jay invites Tiffany out and comes out of the woodwork. We hadn't even seen this guy, and so much so that even Tiffany was like, I had no idea he saw me this way. So at first I thought, they're just editing the non-90-day people out, and these two have been kind of chatting and building a relationship, and we just haven't seen it. But no, then Tiffany tells us, I didn't even know he saw me that way. So out of the clear blue sky, he invites Tiffany out. And then Usman, who bamboozled Courtney into going out on a date, announces himself her property. That's it. It's official. She accepted your invitation to a date. You guys are now each other's property. This guy. Jen invites Rob to have dinner in her room. That's why she did not attend the tiki party, because she was going to hang out with Rob all night and cause more speculation, because of course Rob wasn't going to show up to the party either. So the next day, everybody is discussing the fact that, you guys, this is indeed a dating show. So people need to be dating one another. It's not that weird. And then the ambulance shows up. We hear the ambulance. We see everybody kind of get into a little panic. And then we get a to be continued. Lucky for you, this is a catch-up episode, so you don't have to wait a week to find out what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you now. Colt was in Courtney's room and suddenly is being transported by ambulance. It turns out that he had fallen right outside of Courtney's cabin after they had had breakfast together, and he re-injured his recently broken leg. I don't know if it was his knee that was broken before, but he had just shown us his scar in the last episode. And it, I guess, turns out that he asked Courtney out on a date after all, or at least found some way to end up in her cabin having breakfast with her. And then Courtney tells us that he left and it had just rained. And then, now he has he has this fall. And so we see another scene with a cooking class with Chef Viviana, who is going to use ingredients that will improve sexual performance. Essentially, they're making aphrodisiacs, and while Tim is concerned about the food, he is happy to be hanging out with May. I don't know if he's moved on from Elise, if he read the writing on the walls, or if he's just shooting his shot everywhere he goes, but this week, he is smitten and pursuing May. So let's see how that one goes. Okay, I'm just going to level with you. My notes say Usman is a vagina-looking fig old man ballsack. I know, as God is my witness, I did not think that up. But that's all my note says. So I don't know who said it. I'm going to assume it was Colt. I don't know for sure. And alleged. So if I'm wrong about this, then that is a brilliant phrase that I subconsciously came up with. Otherwise, I think it was Colt. So let's move on. Speaking of Colt, his injury is pretty bad. He gets hauled off in the ambulance, and Jeniffer goes along so she can translate, and Courtney goes along for moral support. And by this time, she's just a basket case. And as the word's getting out, we find out that Colty has to be airlifted to Playa del Carmen to have surgery because it's such a complicated surgery. And it's just not good. I mean, it was a pretty bad break. Really sad. So now they're doing a girls' night, boys' night thing. And at boys' night, we notice that Carlo is just furious because Jay asked Tiffany out. Now, this is the same guy that just a couple of episodes ago told us that he wasn't sure he could be with anybody that had children. And now he's literally getting in this dude's face over the fact that he asked somebody out on a dating show. At the ladies' night, the girls start to exchange sexual fantasy stories. And girl, let me just tell you, we're not on Bravo anymore. TLC is way spicier than Bravo when it comes to what they will leave in and how much graphic detail they allow. All of this to say that the girls have some freaky deaky ideas about what they would like to do, and they're not afraid to talk about it. And TLC is not afraid to share it with us. So there you have it, guys. Well, Chantel, can we take a moment to discuss the wigs? The wigs, young lady. I can't anymore. They are really, really bad, and you're too young to be wearing wigs all the time. So maybe spend a little less money on injectables and fillers and a little bit more money on some good hair. If you don't like your hair, that's what extensions are for. But girl, that wig has you looking like George Washington on a bad powdered wig day, and that's putting it mildly. Do better, young lady. Do better. Okay, rant is over. Jeniffer and Tiffany start to heat up. Why? Because Jennifer's activated again, and she just starts rambling and lashing out at everybody and anybody who comes in to her crossfire. Then the boys meet these girls from London, but apparently their asses aren't big enough because there's this whole conversation about asses, and it just makes me realize, is this what guys talk about when they're all together? They just sit and objectify women? Or did we just get the pleasure of seeing that on TLC this week? Or is it option 3? Am I just too prudish to be podcasting about TLC shows? I don't know. But I just find it all very fascinating. So as this episode, which is episode 8, starts to come to an end, the argument between Tiffany and Jeniffer starts to heat up more and more. And that's how it ends. So episode 9 continues with the argument and Jeniffer yelling at Tiffany to put boundaries up because she is allowing Colt to go to her room and inquire about Jeniffer. So Jeniffer thinks Tiffany is in the wrong, And Elise confronts Jeniffer about what she's been doing behind closed doors with Rob. And Tiffany is being blamed for not putting boundaries up for Colt. So they start screaming at each other. And before you know it, it's cállate here and cállate there. And May essentially has Jeniffer all figured out. And she tells us, at the end of the day, this girl's just afraid to cash in her chips. She's somewhat of a control freak in that she wants to keep both of these guys on the line. I totally agree with May's assessment, and it made me like her even more. But Elise comes at Jeniffer with all 10 claws, man. It starts to get ugly. And honestly, I find Jeniffer pretty sharp. The girl is smart. She's conniving and not a good person, but she's sharp. And she figures out a way to turn this one around too. Meanwhile, back at the boys' ranch, Jay and Carlo are just about coming to blows. And Carlo was the aggressor. He is getting in his face, and it's not a good look for Carlo. And I agree with Jay's assessment. Why isn't he going off on Rocky? I mean, Rocky's been on 2 dates with this girl already, and he didn't get pissed off about that. Why is he so activated about this? I don't know. Meanwhile, in the background, Rocky seems to be moving on. If you look, he's talking to some of the other girls that are non-90-day girls, and I just don't understand, but I find it kind of amusing that all these people are fighting over Tiffany. Tiffany, the invitation still stands. If you'd like to come on the podcast, I'd love to have you, girl. I'd love to see or to hear your version of events and how things went down and what we didn't see. But basically, it was an alcohol-induced mood change, cat fight. Sorry, guys, but you look like you were having a cat fight. Jeniffer is so terrible at engaging in an argument. And honestly, why does she like being such a bitch? You could see her eyes get this little glisten. She loves it. She loves it. So they're all in the van on their way back now. And here's why I love Tim. Because he just stirs the tea and then he kind of just sits back and watches it all go off. He sends a text to Tiffany telling her that the boys got into a fight over her. And not to tell anybody. And of course, before long, the whole van knows what's going on with the guys. And Tiffany feels a certain sort of way. And so do I. But my favorite part was when Jeniffer said, men are emotional and they think we are. Well, Miss Jeniffer, I don't agree with your assessment. I think that some women are emotional. I'm an emotional woman. And I think that some men are emotional. And I think that you'll find men and women that are not emotional. So I think to make that statement, in fact, I think they're just showing passion. And showing passion during the show makes for a good show. So what are we mad at? The group heads out and Elise and Tim start to get chummy. They head to the cenote. And this is the next day. And my favorite part of this entire probably episode were those motion sickness glasses that Nikki was wearing. I need to get some. Did you guys see that? So I had to do the research, and you can get them for about $12. They're not very expensive, but they are glasses that have glasses in the front and then 2 additional glasses on the side where normally the arm of the glass would be. And I guess the idea is everything looks to be in motion. And when you wear those glasses, it stops it and thereby helping your motion sickness. I don't know, but they're cool looking and I want to try them. They're a conversation starter. And ladies and gentlemen, let's play a game of is your number 2 or 3 digits? I guess this is how we quantify our sexual encounters anymore. Is that really a thing? Is it 2 digits or 3 digits? Gosh, I've been married for an awful long time. Things have certainly changed. And what the hell? Okay, Tim, have you ever had an STD? This is his line of questioning to try to charm Elise into liking him. Dude, if this is your game, it explains a lot. Everybody can hear his line of questioning, and it has to do with all of his phobias and no real getting to know her. But I guess if she could get past this vetting, then they might have a future. I thought it was weird, and so did Rob, who makes a comment about it to us. And I just thought it was funny that as all of this is going on, did you guys notice Chantel? It almost looked like she had a thought bubble over her head. She was totally zoned out of what was going on in that van. And the thought bubble said, I can only think of Ashley in our conversation last night. That's what it looked like to me. That girl is smitten with this girl. So we're just going to have to see where this whole thing goes. But she's definitely experiencing some, crisis whereby she is trying to figure herself out. And that's okay. Why does Usman sound so inauthentic? Let me tell you about my cenote experience. Give me a break. This guy, I can't with him. I don't know why he doesn't, I don't know. It explains why he hangs out with, women twice his age, because I don't think anybody with half a brain that is age appropriate would spend time with this guy. He sounds like a clown. And is Tim really vibing with Elise, or is this for our benefit? Because at one point, one of the counselors is talking with Tim, and, he just says, I have no game. And the counselor says, sometimes the best game is to have no game and be yourself. I like it. We should hashtag it. Elise is still determined to find out who the hell spread all these rumors about her, and she doesn't believe that it would be Cole, because Cole was coming to her door just the same way as he was going to Tiffany's door, trying to find out what was going on with Jeniffer and spreading his heartbreak. And so she just doesn't believe that Cole would spread a rumor about her, and she wants to confront it. While as everybody starts to talk about it, and every time somebody says, oh, well, so-and-so told me, Elise brings so-and-so into the group. She's determined to get to the bottom of it. And Rob sees all of this going on, and he just gets up and walks away. It was hilarious. The producer follows him over, and he says, I'm not saying anything. Well, everybody made a mistake if they thought Tiffany was going to be the scapegoat, because Chantel is activated, Elise is activated, everybody's screaming and shouting. You could barely understand the dialogue, but Jeniffer is really good at this game, and in the end, she is yet again the victim. Poor Jeniffer. Usman is having more than a little bit of trouble with the fact that Courtney decided to stay with Colt, and he can't handle it. He's perfectly good making people jealous, but not so good at accepting it when it's coming back at him. So he just keeps saying, I don't understand. And Courtney does come back, and he runs up to her and gives her this greeting, and she kind of sort of gives him the cold shoulder. She goes to the main group and tells us that Colt has multiple fractures. She feels so bad, she's just crying. She says it's a really complex surgery and that it's going to take a few days before they can perform it, because they need to find a doctor capable of handling such an intricate operation. And she tells us that Colt tells her to tell Debbie that he loves her if he doesn't wake up from the anesthesia. And it just makes her realize the seriousness of the situation. And she's finding it impossible to focus on any hunt for love when this is going on with Colt. I don't disagree with you. I would have a hard time acting like nothing was going on myself. And then we get that supersized rest of the season preview that I told you about in the beginning, and there is a lot that still happens. So I'm excited to see the next episode, and I really am happy that we are talking about this show, so I will keep bringing it to you, and we'll be back with the continuation of our summer series in Europe, and I'll continue to get you caught up on all the shows we've been covering. And I really hope that you have an amazing week. I really appreciate you guys and the time you take to listen. I will be back very soon. Until then, I'll be here living on the verge.